This video is to tell you to forgive yourself for the sake of your financial future. Forgive yourself. Because most people are suffering financially actually because of something they don't even think about, something they haven't had on their radar ever, and that is forgiveness. Do you know if you don't forgive yourself for the wrongs you've done financially, you aren't going to be able to find yourself in order to expand financially? If you don't forgive yourself for the things you've done which have put you in the current situation that you're in, you're not going to be able to free yourself in order to do the things to put you in the situation you desire to be in. So this is the reason why I decided to do this video today, to talk to you about forgiving yourself for the sake of your financial future. And before I even get there later, let me just say it now. You might have to also forgive others. If you're like myself, if you're a married man, you might have to forgive your spouse. If you are like myself, you are a dad, you are a father, you may have to forgive your children. You may have to forgive your children. And even if we go a step further, because most people will probably resonate with this one, you may have to even forgive your parents. Okay, now, I get it. You're thinking, Samuel, you usually talk about cash flow. You usually talk about how to create consistent and colossal cash flow using resources and revenues hidden in plain sight. How did we start to talk about forgiveness? I'm here to tell you that 99% of people that I have assisted in the past to move further faster in their finances have had to create some level of forgiveness internally before they'll be able to figure out the financial aspects. Now, I can give you the framework, I can give you the formula, I can literally give you all of the steps to follow in the formation. But the problem is, if you're suffering with forms of unforgiveness around your finances, that's going to hinder you in this process. And I'm going to give you a number of examples to help you with this. If your parents didn't set you up in the financial way that you desire to be set up, when you get older, you get maturer, you look around, you see how other people are dealing with their finances, and you start to say to yourself, you know what, I was hard done by. You start to say to yourself, you know what, maybe I was scammed, right? And for those of you who don't know, I often use the acronym for scam as still confused about money. Maybe I was positioned to stay confused about money rather than to be free from the scam of confusion about money. Why didn't my parents set me up better? Okay, if that's the kind of thinking you're having, I'm here to tell you, you need to execute a high level of forgiveness. If you are someone who looks at your children and you've believed the lie that we need to have 2.4 or 2.5 and that's the only way that we can survive, if you've believed that lie, then you need to forgive your children. You need to forgive your children for ever thinking in your mind, in your heart, that they were part of the problem in terms of your finances. And again, if you're someone who has a spouse in your house and you've looked at them as the reason why you've been unable to financially fly, I'm here to tell you, you need to activate forgiveness. Now, I've just given you kind of like the quick shortcut into understanding how you may need to forgive others. But the reality is, if we take this internally, which is where we really need to start, and please understand, this is not an attempt at me to point the finger. This is an attempt at me pointing the finger, because I understand how, having helped hundreds of people who have come through our cash flow creation week, having helped thousands of people who have come through my property networking events that I used to run, and having helped probably tens of thousands of people through means of the presentations, the content creation, and all of the other things I've done over the years, that one of the most underlying bottlenecks, one of the most horrendous hurdles, one of the most dangerous dams that have stopped people from hitting their financial plan is this issue of forgiveness. So let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of this one, because the real issue is, yes, we need to forgive others, but that forgiveness that we need to extend to others often fosters and festers because we haven't actually forgiven ourselves. We haven't forgiven ourselves for not going out of the way and figuring things out. Sometimes we haven't forgiven ourselves for not standing up when people have told us the wrong thing to do, for not standing for what we actually believe are our true financial values, what we actually believe are the real actual ways for us to get paid, what we actually believe are the paths we should take. Sometimes Whether it is a spouse who says, baby, I think you should just stick with your current job, when inside you're saying, you know what, I need to go for that next promotion. And then you decide to stick with your current job. 2-3 years later, you now feel stuck and you're looking at your spouse like they're the problem in your house. Sometimes, yes, we need to forgive our spouse, but more importantly, we need to forgive ourselves. We need to forgive ourselves for not believing in ourselves enough to take the step. Now, I know your mind just said the risk, but I mean the step. Because everything we call a risk today, tomorrow we look back and it was a step for where we wanted to be. You see, the people that are achieving the financial success that you desire to achieve are taking steps which you call risks. And this is in no way my attempt to explain away the riskology, the risk anomaly, okay? The risk anatomy, right? Yes, making up words, but it's okay. You know what I'm saying. This is in no way my attempt to explain away the risk aspect or nature of the steps that we take. There's a risk inherent in everything. There's a risk inherent in waking up in the morning and going out of your home. There's a risk inherent in waking up in the morning and being in your home. Who's there to prove that the ceiling in your house or the roof is not going to fall in? Okay, and I get it. Your house has been standing for 100 years and you expect it to stand for 100 more. Yes, but the reality is there's risk associated with everything. And we don't necessarily know the intricacies of why things happen the way they happen. But what we do know is when we don't take steps or calculated risks, if you feel more comfortable me saying it like that, if we don't take steps, we can't provide or produce new levels or new layers of life. Why? Because the old adage is true. If you do what you've always done, you can only get what you've always got. Okay? We have to be able to step out. Many people would synonymize this with our comfort zone, but we have to be able to step out of what we traditionally do in order to produce results that are beyond our traditional results. And this is where so many of us get stuck, not because we don't know how to take those steps sometimes, not because we're not aware of what those steps are sometimes, but many a times it's actually because we actually don't trust ourselves. And that lack of trust comes from a fact that we've let ourselves down so many times in the past. We've lied to ourselves so many times in the past. And we've never taken time out to forgive ourselves for the wrongs we've done to ourselves in the past. What would happen if you were free internally around your finances? Let me know in the comments below. I'm genuinely interested. Like, what would happen if on the inside of the inside of the inside of you and I, we were free about the financial decisions we had made. We were free about our current financial predicament. We were free about the next step we were going to take, which previously we might have called a risk, but now we see as just a step. What would happen if there was a freedom inside? You see, what's interesting, and I will take this out of the Bible to share, is that the Bible says in John chapter 8, verse 32, you will know the truth and the truth will make you free. And the reality for many of us is we're trying to operate in our finances. We're trying to create consistent and colossal cash flow on the job, in the business, on the entrepreneurial pursuit, in the investment, but we're not actually internally free. And it's those that are free, those that aren't bound by bad decisions, old decisions, wrong decisions. And I'm not saying that to say that those people are necessarily not making bad decisions, not making wrong decisions. What I'm saying is those people, those of us who have got to that place where we can take that next step and see it as a step, have got to a place where we've forgiven ourselves for the mistakes we've made in the past. So what would happen if you did that? What would happen if you said to yourself, I forgive you? What would happen if you said to yourself, I forgive me? What would happen if you recognized and realized that you're still here and you still have an opportunity? Because what really has caused me to want to share this with you in this video today is a situation that I have with probably one of my dearest friends. Not my dearest, but probably one of my dearest friends. And I started to see the connection between he and me. I started to see behavior change. I started to see shifts and distance being created. And in my mind, I was like, this is interesting because have I done something wrong? And what I started to realize is that the issue was a lack of forgiveness. Now, that's one thing. It's a story, right? But let me go deeper. So the story starts to connect with the failures that we have often in our finances because of forgiveness. Because as I started to realize the issue was a lack of forgiveness, I started to realize what the specific situation where the forgiveness was lacking was based on. And it hit me hard. And this is why it hit me hard, because it was a mistake. It was a mistake. It was a mistake that I made. I get it. Hands up. I'll take responsibility. I made a mistake. But the issue is no longer the mistake. The issue now is the lack of forgiveness. And this is not my attempt to spin the blame and blame it on someone else. No. This is my attempt to rationalize how if we make mistakes, sometimes our lack of forgiveness becomes the bigger problem and no longer the mistake itself. And if we don't understand this in our finances, guess what happens? We end up staying trapped in a fierce financial prison rather than free in order to have our finances risen. We end up being in a place where we're saying to ourselves, why can't I ever get ahead, instead of being free to make our finances generate in a way they've never generated before. And this was the realization that came to me literally as I was thinking through a relational situation, as I was thinking through a friendship situation, as I was thinking through how a mistake can be made, unforgiveness can fester, and because the unforgiveness festers and fosters, it stops the productivity that otherwise should have been there. Now, my hope and prayer is that me and this, my dearest friend, reconcile simply and quickly because we implement and execute a layer of forgiveness. But regardless of that relationship, the framework, the principle is right there. You will know the truth and the truth will make you free. It will make you free from being bound by unforgiveness in the areas of your finances. When you decided to buy that house, even though you didn't really know what you were doing, and now 5 years, 10 years, 8 years down the line, you're realizing you're still only making £200-300 a month from that house. And you might feel within yourself that it's okay because you're doing better than most of the people around you anyway, but you actually know within yourself that the margins are still too slim, that the revenue still feels too thin. You still feel like you're not sure what you're doing. And the reality is, if that's how you feel, you might be right. But you're not going to find out if you're right. You're not going to discover if you're right if you don't begin by forgiving yourself. If you don't say to yourself, look, I get it. This is hard. This is not the situation I thought I was going to be in. When I bought that house all those years ago, when I built that portfolio all those years ago, I thought to myself that I was going to become free. And I get it. I get it. I've had so many clients that I've assisted through this process that I totally get it. But I'm here to say to you, whether you have help from someone else or not, the first thing you can do just to help yourself is to forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. If you've gotten into debt, I've had clients that have been in insurmountable, or what they thought was insurmountable, amounts of debt. And they came along to one of our cash flow creation weeks and they've said, Samuel, you know what? They've got this credit card and that credit card and that credit card and that credit card. And they were robbing Peter to pay Paul, proverbially, in order for them just to stay afloat and pay bills. And I've supported them, I've helped them, I've shown them frameworks, I've shown them systems that they can use in order to replace their situation. But one of the things I noticed, whether it's people struggling with financial debt, or whether it's people sub-optimized with their portfolios, the foundational issue in both situations I found seems to just consistently be the same. It's the lack of forgiveness. Because you can't move forward if you don't deal with your foundation. You can't build a skyscraper if it's going to be living on sand. So what happens is, I help these people by sharing with them tactics, by sharing with them techniques, by sharing with them tool sets and tools that they can use to maneuver. But deeply embedded and inside of whatever I'm showing them, I'm actually just teaching them to forgive themselves. I'm actually encouraging them to forgive themselves. I'm actually showing them you can forgive yourself. It's okay you made a mistake. It's okay you listen to that person. It's okay that you did it that way. Guess what? You've got the grace and opportunity of life today to do this thing another way if you forgive yourself. So I started to realize more and more that forgiveness was at the root of stopping people from producing fruit. I started to realize more and more that forgiveness was actually in the foundation hindering people from producing what was in their financial imagination. And I don't want that to be anybody's story. And this is the reason why this is important enough for me to share with you. Because if there is any area in your life where you have made financial steps that maybe you look at now and say to yourself, I should not have done that. Why did I do that? If only I knew what I knew now, I would have done something else then. This is your permission slip to forgive yourself. This is your signed waiver to forgive it. Just say to yourself, I forgive myself for the mistakes I've made, whether they be financially or any other way. And I commit to going forward to do my best job and give my best shot at having my best life. And this is not no pseudo, psycho, best life, YOLO kind of life. This is not that. This is just your best shot at your best life as someone who is financially more astute, as someone who's willing to learn from others so you don't have to make the mistake of 100 other sisters or brothers, right? This is just your permission slip to be free going forward financially. So that as you navigate the rest of your portfolio build, as you navigate the next purchase of a property, as you navigate the next opportunity that you offer to a brand, as you navigate the next client that you offer your products and services, you understand that you're not going into that negotiation, you're not going into that navigation with hesitation and procrastination. But instead, you're going in with freedom. You're going in knowing I'm clear on the inside. I'm free on the inside because I know the truth. The truth is, whatever I decided yesterday financially, I don't have to be bound by today financially. There are people who in their history were homeless, but today have multiple homes. There are people who in their past had debt literally trying to drown them, but today they live on a financial mountain. And when you start to realize that that is the case, when you start to realize that that is the truth, when you start to realize that that could be the story, not just for me, but also for you, that's when you start to realize the power of forgiving yourself financially. Take it from me, someone who celebrated their 18th birthday in a prison cell, but yet, after being released from prison the second time, has studied 4 degrees, has had a career extremely successfully as a secondary and A-level math teacher, even to the degree that I became a teacher trainer, has been able to replace his wife's income so she could leave her career as a teacher, and then was able to replace his own income, not only just to say, oh, look, I'm financially free, but to go on and support other people through means of the hosting of a very successful property networking event for multiple years in one of the hubs of London in the UK, Canary Wharf, and went even further to establish and build a successful property investment business. Guys, this isn't about my accolades. This is about where I came from. Why? Because I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive myself for making the decisions that I made as a young child. I had to forgive myself for putting myself in the risky predicaments that I put myself in as a young child. I had to forgive myself. And the same way I had to forgive myself for my actions in terms of activity, I have to forgive myself for my actions in terms of financially. If you are being held back by a lack of forgiveness because you're holding on to things that aren't holding on to you, now's your time. This is your permission slip. Forgive yourself. Allow yourself to become the you that you truly see on the inside. Unshackled, unbound, 100% seeking truth in order for you to produce for you. And your children are going to thank you for it. Your spouse in your house is going to thank you for it. Your parents are going to thank you for it. And every other stakeholder who gets to see your shining bright light will thank you for it, because they'll recognize there's a person who's truly free. I want to encourage you, if you got value from this video, hit the like, feel free to leave a comment and let me know. And why not subscribe? This is Something I Can Win. I'm signing out. Feel free to go watch another video that will be of value for you. But with that being said, just remember, small keys open up big doors. Good day, God bless. Let's go.